I'm not really sure how to start this, but I witnessed something last 4th of July that still makes my skin crawl. Sometimes I wonder, what if my weird habit of hiking alone at night saved someone's life? Or what if it almost cost me mine? To give you some background, I've been dealing with a lot of mental crap lately, stuff that's completely out of my control. My way of coping is, well, probably stupid. I go hiking at night, deep into places most people wouldn't even drive through after dark. On the 4th of July, it seemed like a perfect night to clear my head. There was this massive full moon hanging over the fields, and fireflies were sparking all over the woods like tiny fireworks. I drove out to the countryside and parked my car at this random pull-off near a river. It's surrounded by dense forest and some nasty swamps. At about 11:30 p.m., I started walking. I'll admit, I had a couple White Claws stashed in my backpack. But that's beside the point. I'd been walking for almost 2.5 hours. Nothing major happened. Just the sounds of frogs and insects, the crunch of gravel under my boots, the faint smell of swamp water hanging in the air. I was finally heading back toward my car, feeling a little calmer. Until everything changed. I stepped onto this old bridge that crossed the river. My car was still about 3 miles west, so I had a long walk ahead. That's when I heard footsteps behind me on the asphalt. Not faint footsteps. Heavy, deliberate footsteps. Instantly, my whole body went rigid. My brain flipped from peaceful hike to, I'm about to get mugged or stabbed. I spun around so fast that I nearly lost my balance. And there he was. A man, dressed all in black, much closer than the footsteps made it seem. Under the glow of the full moon, I could see his eyes locked on mine. He suddenly broke into a sprint, charging straight at me. But at the last possible second, he swerved and bolted around me instead. My heart was hammering so hard I thought it would crack my ribs. But somehow, adrenaline, or maybe those White Claws, gave me the guts to shout after him. "Hey man, you good?" "What's up?" He barely glanced over his shoulder and yelled back, "I have to get my wife," and kept running into the darkness. I stood there for a second, completely rattled. Okay. Weird, I thought. Who the hell is running around looking for his wife at 2 a.m, in the middle of nowhere? I kept walking toward my car, trying to convince myself it was nothing. Then I heard it. A woman, screaming. Not just any scream. The kind that hits something primal inside you. The sound of pure terror. It was coming from the same path I needed to take to get back to my car. I froze. I felt sick, like I was going to throw up. Through her sobs, I heard her crying, "Please, I can't take it. I don't want this anymore. Please don't." A chill went through me so hard it felt like ice in my veins. I crept off the road and ducked into the bushes, moving as quietly as I could. Every branch seemed to snap like gunfire under my boots. I moved closer, and then I saw them. The guy from earlier, the one in black, was there again. But this time, there was another man, much bigger, also dressed in black. He was carrying a woman over his shoulder like she was nothing but a sack of potatoes. She wasn't screaming anymore, just sobbing uncontrollably. She looked young. Maybe 19 or 21 at most. Small, blonde hair. Probably 110 pounds soaking wet. My heart was pounding so hard, I felt dizzy. I stepped out from the trees and yelled, "Is that your wife? Is everything okay?" The first man looked me dead in the eyes and said, "Yeah, she's fine. She just can't handle her liquor." He tried to keep walking, but the woman lifted her head, just barely, her eyes swimming with tears. Her voice was a whisper, slurred, but I could still hear her trying to say, "Please, no, help." Her arms reached out toward me, but they were limp, like she couldn't even hold her own weight. My chest tightened so painfully I thought I'd black out. I knew right then, this wasn't alcohol. Something was seriously, terrifyingly wrong. I wanted to help her so badly. But I'm about 5'10", 140 pounds, soaking wet. There was no way I'd win against two guys twice my size. So I forced a casual smile and said, "Oh yeah, man. Been there. I'm sure she'll sleep it off and be fine." It felt like acid in my mouth to say it. I only said it because I needed him to believe I was buying his story. The woman tried to cry out again, but the bigger man tightened his hold on her and kept walking. They passed me. Once they were about 20 feet behind me, I risked a glance over my shoulder. They'd stopped in the middle of the road, looking back at me. I forced myself to keep my face blank, like I didn't give a damn what they were doing. Then, the moment they started moving away, I bolted for cover behind a sloped railroad track. My hands were shaking so bad I almost dropped my phone. I called 911, told them everything I'd seen. The dispatcher sounded bored at first, until I mentioned the woman seemed drugged and was being carried off against her will. He suddenly got serious and said, "Yeah, we've had 2 other calls tonight. We'll get someone out there." I hung up and started running for my car like my life depended on it. By the time I reached my car, I was drenched in sweat, shaking, half crying, half cursing. I floored it back to the spot where I'd seen them last. When I rounded the corner, I almost screamed in relief. There were flashing lights everywhere, police cruisers, paramedics. They had both men up against the cruisers, hands spread, getting frisked. And that girl, the one who'd been slung over the man's shoulder, was lying on the ground while paramedics worked to get her onto a stretcher. I sat in my car, hands gripping the wheel so hard my knuckles turned white. I couldn't help crying, not just from relief, but from the thought that kept running through my head. What if I hadn't gone for that stupid hike? What if nobody had been there to see her? Or worse, what if they'd grabbed me too? So if you take anything away from this story, don't be a bystander. If you see something, say something. I guess I should have known better. I mean, even at 13, I'd already seen enough darkness to know the world isn't safe. But there was this one summer, the 4th of July, that almost changed my life forever. Because a voice from thousands of miles away tried to steal me. I grew up in a tiny village in rural Illinois. Seriously, a village. One stop sign. No stoplights. Everybody knew everybody. But my home life was chaos. My mom was addicted to meth. She'd been married 6 times by the time I hit middle school. Some nights, I was the one cooking dinner for my sisters, helping the youngest with her homework, wiping her tears when she cried for our mom, and saving my own tears for her after she fell asleep. I'd hide dirty dishes in the oven or the bathtub so my stepmom wouldn't yell when she picked us up for Dad's weekend. I know it sounds messed up, but for a while, that was normal to me. And even though I'd been to 14 different schools and lived in twice as many houses, somehow, I was still innocent, still wanting love. I found my escape at my mom's best friend, Kat's house. Kat had 4 kids. They called me Sis. Her house felt safe. Warm dinners, laughter, and, one of the best things ever, a computer. Kat's family had dial-up internet right there in the dining room. That's how it all started. At night, after everyone went to bed, I'd sneak onto that computer. The dial-up tone still rings in my ears sometimes. I started hanging out in chat rooms. It felt like magic, talking to people from all over the world. That's where I met Josh. He said he was 15. From Australia. He rode dirt bikes, loved animals. But what pulled me in was how he talked to me. He asked how my day was, if I was okay. He didn't ask gross questions like other guys online. I started living for those conversations. We talked almost every night for weeks. Then came the 4th of July weekend. Josh wanted to call me, all the way from Australia. But my dad had big plans that weekend. A cookout, fireworks, family stuff. I told Josh I couldn't talk. He came up with a plan. Pretend you're sick, he said. Then we can talk while they're gone. I felt so wanted, so special. So I agreed. On the 4th of July, I woke up shaking with excitement and fear. I didn't even have to fake being pale or having a shaky voice. I was genuinely nervous. My dad bought my act. He kept patting my forehead, frowning. "You sure you're okay, sweetheart?" "Yeah, Dad. I just feel weird." He finally left with his wife and my sisters. As soon as the door closed, my stomach flipped. It was 12:45, 15 minutes until Josh's call. Then, the phone rang. My heart nearly stopped. I grabbed the phone and whispered, "Hello?" A deep voice answered. "Hey, babe, it's Josh." But it didn't sound like a 15-year-old kid. It sounded older, too deep. Before I could say anything else, I heard another voice. My dad. I hadn't realized he'd forgotten something in the house. He was standing right behind me. "Who is that on the phone?" he demanded. I fumbled, stuttering. I don't know. Wrong number. My dad ripped the phone out of my hand. But whoever was on the line had already hung up. Dad glared at me, furious and suspicious. That week was hell. My dad kept drilling me with questions. Who was Josh? What was going on? I cried myself to sleep every night, terrified that Josh would call again, but he didn't. Instead, something way scarier happened. The FBI showed up at my house. 2 men in suits sat at our kitchen table with my mom and Tom, my stepdad. Agent McIntosh, that was his real name, like the apple, explained everything. Josh was really Bill, a 43-year-old man from Australia. He'd been grooming me for weeks. He'd already bought a plane ticket to America, and a one-way ticket in my name. Bill wasn't just talking to me. He had 3 other blonde, blue-eyed girls in the US he was working on. I felt like I was floating outside my own body while they talked. I kept thinking, he was going to come here. For me. Even after the FBI told me to cut all contact, it didn't stop. Suddenly I started getting emails from Josh's uncle, saying Josh had been in a terrible accident, that he was in the hospital. He just wanted a picture of me to keep beside his bed. The voice on the phone from Josh's uncle was the same deep voice I'd heard that day. And that's when it hit me. It had never been Josh. It had always been Bill. After the FBI, things got even messier. My best friend, the one who'd let me use her email and phone sometimes, turned on me. When I told her what happened, she screamed that I was lying. "Why would you make up something like that? You're just jealous." She slammed the door in my face. We didn't speak for 7 years. Years later, she found me on Facebook. She apologized. She knew I'd been telling the truth all along. But she still didn't know what happened to Bill. Neither do I. And that's the worst part. I sometimes lie awake, remembering how close I came to disappearing. Or worse. My mom told me something years later that still makes me feel sick. Bill hadn't just bought a ticket to the US. He'd also bought a return ticket and a one-way ticket to Australia. In my name. So if you're a kid reading this, or a parent, please be careful online, because monsters don't always look like monsters. Sometimes they sound like a sweet 15-year-old boy on the other side of the world. Sometimes I lie awake at night wondering how close I came to disappearing forever. All because of one 4th of July when I was 8 years old. It was 1976, America's bicentennial. My family decided to go camping at Twin Pines State Park for the holiday weekend. I was 8, and back then, the 4th of July was pure magic for me. Fireworks, barbecue smoke drifting through the trees, running wild with my cousins until our arms were covered in mosquito bites. That morning, Dad gave us kids a mission. Go pick as many blackberries as you can. We'll pour them over sponge cake tonight. We scattered into the forest with our little buckets, determined to fill them. The woods smelled like sun-warmed pine needles, dusty soil, and the sweet, tangy scent of berries. I remember thinking nothing bad could ever happen to me there, surrounded by family. I wandered deeper than the other kids, hunting for the biggest berries I could find. I spotted a tall, narrow boulder with blackberry bushes spilling over it. Jackpot, I thought. I started picking, moving clockwise around the stone, my fingers stained purple. Then I stepped on a patch of moss. My feet slipped, and for a split second the world tilted. My vision blurred. A wave of dizziness washed over me so hard I had to grip the rock to keep from falling. When the spinning stopped, the woods felt too quiet. No kids shouting, no distant laughter. A hush so deep it made the hair on my neck stand up. I stumbled back toward the trail, clutching my half-filled bucket. But when I stepped into the clearing, my family was gone. The picnic table was empty. The RV still sat there, but no one was around. My chest tightened. My eyes darted everywhere, searching for a familiar face. That's when I saw it. A new-looking granite marker near the picnic area. Something about it glinted in the sun, calling me closer. I shuffled toward it, my heart thundering. And then I read the plaque. In memory of Daniel A. missing since July 4th, 1976. Dedicated July 4th, 1986. Above the words was a black and white photo of me. Same bowl-cut hair. Same red t-shirt I was wearing that day. My breath caught in my throat. My fingers trembled as I reached out and touched the stone. It felt cold as ice under my skin. A voice spoke behind me. "Daniel!" I spun around so fast I nearly fell. A man in a ranger's uniform was staring at me with a concerned look. "You okay, son? You look like you've seen a ghost." I tried to speak, but my voice cracked. "Where's my family?" I managed to croak. He glanced at the memorial and let out a long sigh. "Son, I think you're a little mixed up," I shouted. "That's me on that stone. It says I'm missing." He held up his hands in a calm gesture. "It's not your picture, Daniel." Another boy. Same first name, same initial. Went missing here on the 4th of July, 10 years ago. My pulse was thundering in my ears. The ranger said sometimes kids get overheated, wander off, and panic. That the sun can play tricks on your eyes. He gently guided me back toward the campsite. And there was my family. All of them standing there, shouting my name. My mom was crying as she grabbed me in a hug so tight I could barely breathe. I didn't tell anyone about the stone for a long time. I was afraid they'd think I'd gone crazy. Years later, I finally looked it up, and I found out there really was a boy named Daniel A., who went missing in Twin Pines State Park on the 4th of July, 1976. He was 8 years old, the same age I was that day. They never found him. Sometimes, late at night, I think about how close I came to vanishing myself. Just a few more steps deeper into the woods. Or trusting the wrong person who offered to help. I wonder if my family's chaos, the arguments, the stress, made me wander off so far in the first place. Now, whenever I see a missing kid's face on a poster, I stop. I read the name. I look at the eyes. And I hope that kid makes it home. Because sometimes, you're only one moment away from becoming a picture on a memorial stone.